Good evening. I reconvene this regular meeting of the Minnehaha County Planning Commission and will begin with a few introductory comments. As a courtesy to everyone in the meeting room tonight, please make sure that all cell phones are turned off. Please note that tonight's Planning Commission meeting will be recorded live and available for viewing by members of the public afterwards on the www.minnehahacounty.org site. In observance of the CDC guidelines for social distancing, tonight's meeting is taking place simultaneously within the County Commission meeting room and virtually within a Zoom meeting room online. In the Zoom meeting room, each individual user on the line will be on mute to maintain communication clarity for everyone. Every item listed on the agenda will be read separately. If any member of the public wishes to be heard on an item, you may raise your hand while I read the item description. If hands are raised, we will follow our normal hearing procedure by requesting planning staff to present a report on each item and then request the petitioner to come to the podium and make a statement or answer any questions. Anyone from the audience wishing to address the item shall be recognized by planning staff in the order hands were raised and state their name and address for the record. The Planning Commission will then discuss the matter and take appropriate action. For those participating remotely, please watch the following instructions on how to raise your hand in the Zoom program. Okay. First on the agenda is the minutes from the November 23rd Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments or changes to the minutes? Oh, pardon me. First on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Please raise your hand, and if you are attending remotely, you will be unmuted to comment.
No one out there for public comment.
Thanks, Scott. Move on to item number 2 on the agenda is the minutes from the November 23rd Planning Commission meeting. Is there any comments or changes to the minutes?
I move approval. This is Becky Randall.
Second, this is Jeff.
Motions have made and seconded to approve the minutes of the November 23rd meeting. Roll call vote. Jeff Barth?
Aye.
Adam Morehauser?
Aye.
Doug Odie?
Aye.
Mike Ralston?
Aye.
Becky Randall?
Aye.
Ryan Beneflet?
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. We have approved the minutes of the November 23rd meeting. Items 3 through 14 are conditional use permits. Any final action taken on these conditional use permits tonight will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal of the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Office by Monday, February 1st at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 at or after 9 a.m. The affected parties will be notified of the meeting date. Meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. Next up, I'll be reading the description of item number 3. If anybody wishes to comment on that item, now would be the time to raise your hand. Item number 3 is conditional use permit 21-01 to Did you wish to comment, sir? We'll just ask you to come forward, okay? I'll start over on item number 3, conditional use permit 21-01 to allow an agriculturally related operation. It's a butcher shop on the property legally described as Track 1, Funky's Edition, Southeast Quarter, Section 35, Township 101 North, Range 48 West. Petitioner is Ronald Heller. He's also the property owner. It's located approximately 3 miles east of Sioux Falls. David?
Good evening, Planning Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. So conditional use permit 21-01 is to allow an agriculturally related operation or a butcher shop. This property is located, as you see on the map overhead. It's outlined in red. It is about straight east, about a quarter mile from the county highway intersection. It's located along County Highway 150 or 268th Street. This property on the north side, as you see, there is a large telecommunications tower there. And to the west there, or excuse me, to the east, you can see the property is also owned by the petitioner to the east. There you can see there's like a little creek ravine there as well. And then the property in question is about 4.56 acres. The proposed use would be similar to a home occupation with a maximum of 2 employees. The petitioner has mentioned in the narrative that plans to just do it himself with the occasion of maybe another person. The subject property does have an available building eligibility for a single-family dwelling. However, the property owners indicated that they would not be residing on the property in the near term. The proposed operation, as the narrative states, is for client pickups from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., which are just appointments only. The petitioner expects less than 3 visits per day over the course of a week from clients. The proposed use aims to serve farmers and other individuals with their butchering needs. Staff went out to the property on January 13th and determined that the proposed use is appropriate for the surrounding area. I'm just going to go through the site plan really quick and kind of touch on some of the plans that the petitioner has there. As you see, there's 2 buildings that the petitioner has proposed for this site. You can see there's a 30 by 60 and then it's 80 by 45 there, the building just to the northwest of that. And then you see also a septic tank and then a sign located a proposed sign located south of the proposed 30 by 60 building. As well as there's some trees that are indicated on there as well. Didn't describe what kind of trees they are, but looks like they're all around the property there. Going forward with the site, this you can see kind of looking where on that site plan where the proposed driveway access would be, but that would have to be approved by the Minnehaha County Highway Department for access onto the property from the highway. This is looking towards, there's a shelter belt to the west on the neighboring property, which is a residentially used property there, just to the west. This is looking straight east down the county highway towards what you see is Iowa on the south side of the highway, and then Minnehaha County on the left side of the image here. Here's that cell tower that I was describing that's immediately straight north of, this is about where that driveway would be or where the site plan located the driveway. This is the property to the west. As you can see, there's a couple agricultural structures there and barns. And then this is just another view of the tower. This is what looks to be an existing farm approach there for the farmland. Just gives you another perspective of the site from the other angle to the southwest. And again, the same kind of view looking towards where the buildings would be and the trees in the foreground. This is immediately across the street to the south on the Iowa side. This is one of the only property owners that was required to be notified per the zoning ordinance for the conditional use permit hearing. The petitioner was given the information to notify them. This is one of the properties, just going through some of the area, mostly agricultural. There's a few residential homes there. And you can see there's a kind of a large building there for agricultural use. And then as you look towards this is that property that's immediately to the west. Kind of took a far shot from that. And this is another business that was previously approved by the Planning Commission to operate a seed sales business, a similar agriculture-related operation. This is about a half mile to the west of the subject property. So just going through, the recommendation for the proposed use, the staff finds that the proposed use is appropriate for the surrounding area and conforms to the goals and policies of the envisioned 2035 comprehensive plan. So staff is recommending approval of conditional use permit 21-01 with, there's 9 conditions on this conditional use permit, and if you'd like me to read them, I can. And if you have any questions on the particular conditional use permit, I can answer them this time.
Any questions for David?
Yeah, David, I have one. It's regarding a septic system. What would be required for a butcher shop, and what they do with all the wastewater and whatnot?
As far as what they're gonna have with, if they're gonna have a septic system, they're gonna have, like, if they're gonna have a bathroom in the facility,
Okay.
stuff like that, obviously they would have to have separators for things they were gonna.
And kind of knowing that area, is there any worry about bedrock being fairly close to the surface there?
There is rock, in the area, but the applicant didn't provide any details as far as
Okay.
knowing if there's rock in this specific area.
The applicant here tonight?
The applicant is
Okay,
here,
great.
yep. If that answers your question.
Madam Chair, this is Becky. I have a question.
Go ahead.
What about fly control or nuisance control?
So, with the condition that number 5, that all butchering activity, equipment, supplies, and animal products, they'll be kept inside the proposed enclosed accessory structure. And this list includes any animal hides and skins. So none of that can be left outside. The petitioner will obviously, they will have to come up with a plan for mitigating the potential for other products that would be released as far as the process of butchering, and making sure all that's contained within the building or disposed of in a proper manner. If that answers your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions for David? I guess not at this time. If the petitioner is here, will you please come forward and state your name and address, please?
Hi, Ron Heller, 26612 Kelly Circle, Brandon.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for him? Doug?
Yeah, my question, you know, I already know what I'm going to ask you about about the wastewater, how you're going to handle that. And
I've got a plan for all of that.
Okay, super. And then, being we're talking, have you done any boring as far as, do you know how far the bedrock is down? Because I know in spots it's pretty
Yeah,
shallow.
most of that is to the north. That is actually a pasture at this time.
Yeah.
And he farms it, so yeah, I would assume, and what I've been told by the Funky, Richard Funky, who I bought the land from, that it's all to the north and a lot to the east of there.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Do you want to elaborate on the
Yes, you bet. I'd love
wastewater,
to.
please?
So there's a couple different things, and I've done a lot of research on this and talked to the Department of Agriculture and what their requirements are. And I'm willing to go above and beyond what they even require, because in South Dakota, I know there's other butcher facilities that they actually have their waste outside. What I'm proposing is building what is mentioned here in item 5 as an accessory building that would store the waste. So what I would do is actually build, if allowed, a small outbuilding, like a 10 by 10, and put the waste there. The waste would be contained in blue plastic barrels, like 50 gallon. I've talked to Rendering, and D&J Rendering in Laverne, Minnesota, and they pick it up. And so what I'm proposing is that I slaughter on, say, Monday, Tuesday, and have them pick up on Wednesday, and they're fine with that. So it would be in a separate building that would be, during the summer, even temperature controlled with an air conditioner. And it'd have to keep, for them to pick that up too, it can't be frozen, so it'd have to be, you know, temperature controlled probably throughout the year just for them to pick that waste up in the barrels. But as far as the septic system, yes, the Department of Agriculture for South Dakota requires a septic, it's not a separate septic system, but you have to have backflow from where your waste is going. So if you wash blood down the drain, it has to have a separate backup, so you can't use your regular septic. That has to be a separate line going into your septic.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
Any other questions for him? Okay, I guess nothing at this time.
I do have one
ahead.
question. It does say that there shall be required to hard surface up to 50 feet north of the property line. What is hard surface actually? Does that mean paved, or is it?
David, you want to address that?
So, hard surfacing. So hard surface, David Heinold, hard surfacing, the zoning ordinance has a section that requires for properties that are zoned commercial and industrial. I did write that in the criteria for the proposed driveway, so that would be a consideration for the planning commission to require a hard surface for the driveway off of a paved road. Typically, that's what we require of properties that are zoned commercial and industrial. This property is zoned A1 agricultural district. So that would be up to the planning commission to implement that. That wasn't a condition on the agriculture related operation for seed sales business to the west of this property, just for your information.
So are you saying that that should be an additional condition, or an additional item on that?
The planning commission can take that up for consideration.
Oh, I see.
I just included that with the criteria.
Scott, do you know if there's anybody back there that wants to comment on this item?
I think I got them all, but I'll double check.
Okay. You want to come forward, sir, and state your name and address?
Yeah, hi there. I'm R.J. Wright at 48198 267th Street, and my brother and I raise cattle, and I'm here in support of this. I think this is probably a good idea, and that's my only reason. I see no real issues as long as you've kind of gone through the things that you need to address, but we've delivered livestock to Canton, Hills, Minnesota, Renner-Locker. A lot of those plants are built right on the edge of town or in town, and I've never seen a lot of issues. And I just think this is probably something that's needed, and out in that area, I think it's probably a good idea. And to further that, in this country, we've got a real problem with the packing industry and the producers and the consumers in terms of who's controlling the meat supply and who owns the packers and the price the farmers are getting versus the price the consumers are having to pay for this meat due to our consolidation of the packing. And in that regard, I just think this is another reason this is a good idea. This is maybe a good start to get a few more smaller people harvesting livestock. So that's just my comments. I support this.
Okay, thank you.
I checked, there's no one out there.
Anybody on Zoom?
No hands are raised.
Commissioners?
Becky Randall, and I move support of, or approval of conditional use permit number 21-01 with the conditions as listed.
And Doug Odie will second item number 3, 21-01.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to approve conditional use permit 21-01. Any further comments or questions? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth,
Aye.
Adam Morehauser,
Aye.
Doug Odie,
Aye.
Mike Ralston,
Aye.
Becky Randall,
Aye.
Ryan Bannerflit.
Aye.
This item has been approved. Thank you. If your item has been approved, you're free to go.
I did have a question on the purpose, will that be, just call our office, we'll help you out. Thank you.
How soon are you gonna start?
Soon as the ground breaks. Oh, boy. Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, conditional use permit 21-02 to transfer one building eligibility from Track C, Heiberger Edition, to Track 1, Tatanka Edition, all in the northwest quarter, Section 5, Township 103 North, Range 51 West. Petitioners Tatanka LLP, they're also the property owner, 4 miles southwest of Colton. Scott?
Thank you. Scott Anderson, Planning Director, and this is conditional use permit 2102. It's to transfer one building eligibility in Section 5 of Clear Lake Township, I think. But anyway, the property is located about 4 miles southwest of Colton or about 1 mile east of Clear Lake. And the surrounding land uses in this area are primarily agriculture. And the applicant is wanting to move one of the eligibilities from the southern part of his property up to 250th Street. And I did note that in 2008, the applicant moved some other eligibilities up there. So this has been something that we have seen in the past. It's not really changing the density of the area, and I think the applicant's here, and you can talk to them. Much of this property is used in wetlands mitigation that they are involved with. So this is moving it from a wetter area up to closer to the road where it's going to be better utilized, and clustering this eligibility with the other two that have already been transferred. The access to the property would come off of 250th, and there should be plenty of parking. So staff is recommending approval of conditional use permit 21-02 with one condition that they file a right to farm notice on the property before we issue a building permit. I'll be glad to answer any questions. So yeah, this just shows, where it's at, where they're moving it from and to. But I'd be glad to answer any questions, and the applicant's here in the audience.
Scott, I have one.
Scott, Adam Morehauser.
Go ahead.
I have one for you, Scott,
Okay?
or a couple things. Do the other two building eligibilities, do they have a right to farm covenants on those two?
They haven't obtained building permits to build the residence yet. So typically, we require that when they get ready to start building.
Okay, all right. And then the other question I had too is all three houses gonna be together for just one shared driveway then? Is that what the plan is?
Well, they would need to work with the township if that's what the township wants. That's certainly a possibility, so.
Okay. All right. So I was just wondering if there's gonna be a couple driveways or shared driveways or, that's all I had.
I have a question, Scott. How does that work with this being in that wetland mitigation bank as far as,
I don't know if I can answer that, but that might be a question that the applicant can answer for you.
Any other questions for Scott?
Thanks.
If the applicant is here, will you please step forward and state your name and address.
I'm on Zoom, is that qualified?
That does. Just state your name and address, please.
Jeff Oyen, 46919 255 Street, Crook, South Dakota. Speaking of driveways, there'll be a driveway, its own driveway. We got a permit earlier this fall. It's installed. The other driveway comes off the highway, so they won't be using that one coming off the gravel road, whatever you said, 255 Street. Secondly, about the wetland use, this particular portion of the property is not involved with that. It's an upland that's not part of the covenanted area that is affected. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Scott, is there anyone else back there that wishes to speak?
These gentlemen here for it? Are you here for this item? You want to speak? Now's your time.
Please state your name and address.
Mark Anderson, 25005 462 Avenue. I have a question on the sewage system, being it's that close to the wetland.
Is that a question for me?
Yes, it is, I think, yes.
Okay, so you're asking about, I believe the question was about a sewer system that close to a wetland, and my answer would be that there's 2.5 acres of property there, and obviously for them to I believe obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they'd have to get a perk test done and get approved for a drain field, but I don't see any issue with that at all. Thank you.
Did he answer your question?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Is there any concern about it being a habitat for wildlife with those housing areas?
Sir,
I
did
think
you?
that's a great question.
Okay.
We've spent the last couple decades building habitat for wildlife there, and if anybody from the area would know that there's probably that's a greater wildlife habitat than most areas in our county have. And we would hope that if somebody builds a house there, they would just be able to enjoy it. I don't believe it would impede the habitat at all. And not being in the deed restricted area, it's a great consideration, but or it's a great topic, but it's not part of the deed restriction part of our habitat development.
I guess I have no other questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David, is there anybody else on Zoom that wishes to speak to this item you see?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Anyone else here in the room wishes to speak to this item? Commissioners?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Ralston. I'd make a motion to approve.
This is Jeff. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 21-02. Any further comments? Questions? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth,
Aye.
Anna Morhauser,
Aye.
Bill Godey,
Aye.
Mike Ralston,
Aye.
Becky Randall,
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflit,
No.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. That particular conditional use permit has been approved. Move on to item number 5. conditional use permit 21-03 to transfer one building eligibility from the west 580.8 feet, the south 300 feet, the north 990 feet, the west half, the northwest quarter. There is an exception of the south 200 feet, the west 435.6 feet thereof, and except H-1 and RY. 2 Lot 3, Strikes Edition, north 990 feet, the west half, the northwest quarter, all in Section 34, Township 101 North, Range 48 West. Petitioner is Bill Radio, and he's also the property owner, 3 miles east of Sioux Falls. David?
Good evening, Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. So conditional use permit 21-03 is to transfer one building eligibility. As you can see the map there, there's actually an L-shaped property on the map overhead. There's no house on that currently, so the current building eligibility, which is the one under consideration, is listed as conditional use. So it requires a hearing to make that available. In this case, the petitioner would like to transfer it to the property on the east side of this image, or to the right of the image, in the 2 spot, which is also called Lot 3 of Strikes Edition, if I pronounce that right. That property, according to the petitioner and the plat that was provided with the application, does show legal access to 267th Street. As you can see, is located to the north, 2 properties north of the 2 section where the building eligibility is proposed to be located. There are no concentrated animal feeding operations within a mile of the subject property. There is one that's about 1.5 miles away to the east of the site. Staff has gone to the property. Let me back up a second here. I kind of skipped ahead of myself. This is the plat that the petitioner has provided. As you can see on the map is what I was describing with the legal access to the site along the eastern property boundary of Lot 3 and then to the north towards 267th Street. Staff has received a couple of phone calls as far as drainage on the site, which is one of the conditional use permit criteria that the Planning Commission is to consider with any conditional use permit requests. A couple of the property owners were concerned about draining more water onto his land from to the southeast of the site. As you can see on the contour map published by the USGS, it kind of flows towards the southeast there. As you can see, the high part is on the east side of the property. And then you can also see there is another, there's kind of a channel through there on the fence line where the water would flow to the north towards the 267th Street. And there are some of the pictures that I have that I took of the site that kind of show this in a little bit more detail. This is looking from 267th Street, looking south. As you can kind of see, you can see there's a bluish building in that image in the background. That is on the property that's just north of Lot 3, which is kind of sitting up on a higher point there. You can kind of see where it kind of drops down a little bit there from the picture here, back towards that Lot 3. This is just that same image along the fence line. And then this is the gravel road along 267th Street. Off to the left of the image is the gravel pit or rock quarry. This is looking back towards the west, towards further west would be another residential subdivision in the area, and then off to the south is one of the residences there at the intersection with that long rectangular lot. This is the picture of the trees along the rock quarry area and the berm located to the north of 267th Street. This picture gives you a little bit better view. I tried to zoom in as much as I could there to show that kind of that valley in there. It kind of looks like it goes down towards that building in the back area. This picture is this is that building that was on the L-shaped property. And there's kind of a gravel driveway with some grass there, with the fence in the background there. The petitioner does have another building on the personal property. As you can see, is off to the right of this image. The proposed location for the house would be located just in the background of this image, just past that building, off into that grassy area past the snow. This is just giving you the location of that house to the north. As you can see, it kind of sits up higher up on the hill there. You can see the topography there in this image where that house would be located. So this is some of the neighbor photos. I'm not going to go through them as much. I'll let the neighbor explain those. So staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit request is consistent with density zoning and recommends approval of conditional use permit 21-03 with the following conditions. 1, that a right to farm notice covenant shall be placed on the deed prior to the issuance of a building permit for the single-family dwelling. 2, that a driveway or culvert permit be obtained from Split Rock Township prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 3, that a drainage plan certified by a registered professional engineer shall be submitted to the Minnehaha County Planning Department detailing the type, intensity, and flow of stormwater from the subject property prior to obtaining a building permit for the single-family dwelling. And that last condition, I have changed that since the original writing of that to reflect the ability for the applicant to be required to produce a drainage plan certified by a registered professional engineer to try and solve some of the issues in the area with the drainage that may exist from the addition of a new single-family dwelling. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions for David?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff. David, is there a drainage issue there?
From what I hear, there's some drainage issues because, as you can see in this image, it's been explained to me that there's water being rushed through culverts that aren't very big. So there may be some other issues happening around the property that it may not be on this particular lot 3, but it may be around it, and there may be some concerns that it may amplify that with a single-family dwelling.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Guess not at this time. If the petitioner is here, will you please come forward and state your name and address?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Bill Radio, 26718 481st Avenue, Brandon. So I live in the house on 481st Avenue on the west side of this long property that we're talking about. And my wife and I bought this property with the house on it 30 years ago. We've lived there for 30 years. And with that property came this additional building eligibility. So later on, one of our neighbors who owned the property behind us was platting off his undeveloped land, and we bought the 5 acres that go directly back to the east of our property, which was then 4 acres. Now it's 9+ acres. But it's a separate lot, a separate 5 acres. And at the time that we bought that property, the property owner that was selling it also platted in an access off of 267th into the property, and that's what you see on what the staff has presented. We love our neighborhood, we love our neighbors, and we'd love to stay right where we are, but our house is all stairs, and it's getting too tough for my wife. But we'd like to stay in the area. We actually even explored building on the property where you kind of saw the road that goes back to the barn, but it's a weird configuration, really wouldn't work very well for a house. And when I talked to the county planning, or county public works, they told me they wouldn't even consider another access onto 481st Avenue. So in order to use this building eligibility and stay in the area, we'd have to go on that back 5 acres. Now, as I mentioned, we've lived there for 30 years, so we are well aware of drainage in the area. There's been a couple of wet periods, including 2 years ago, and we know that people in the area get wet. We don't want to exacerbate that situation. We're totally in agreement with the staff that there should be a drainage plan done that we would do before getting any permits. We're willing to do that. We've actually already talked to Sarah and Associates to do that for us. We haven't retained them because we wanted to make sure we had a legitimate piece of property to work with here, but we will retain them so that any road that goes in there, as well as the house itself, would not exacerbate and hopefully improve the drainage situation for all of our neighbors who we already know and have lived with for many years. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for him?
Yeah, Bill, I'll go to you. I'd like to ask a couple. In that neighborhood, you know, I've lived in that area too for my whole life. Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it about 20, 25 years ago, wasn't there one of your neighbors, wasn't there such a water problem that their whole basement was flooded and they had to fill it in? Could you expand on that, what you know about it, or
Sure.
how that arose?
That would be the property immediately to the south of us, where our house is. It would be southwest of where we would build the new house. And yes, they were fighting water problems in where their house was, and they did fill in the basement.
Okay.
The drainage for that property owner as well as us, for everything to the east and north that comes south, goes right through our backyard, through our neighbor's front yard where the basement was filled in, and then takes a right turn to go under 481st and head down to the Big Sioux River.
Okay, my other question is, I know the property to the east of you, it's ag ground, and I know there's bedrock that it's very close to the top of the soil. So I was just curious how much water, surface water, runs on top of that rock that will affect this also. It'd be just an additional amount of water flowing through there rather than if you had just plain dirt under there. That's a big concern of mine, because how much water is actually going to run off those rock down through this area?
Well,
And how can we alleviate that so we don't have more problems?
I don't know that I can totally answer your question, Mr. Commissioner, without doing the study, but I can say that when we see the heavy rains and the snow melt in the spring and that sort of thing, there's one low area in that property, our 5 acres that we'd like to build on, that seems to drain that water off of there. We don't see, from our place anyway, surface water on any of the rest of the lot. There may be, but from our place, we don't see it. And as far as what we would be doing, if we build on that property, we are even looking at building just a slab house just because of stairs again. So in terms of, you know, a house with a basement having problems, that wouldn't be a concern to us. But I understand what you're saying, and you know, if we do the drainage study and we find that it's a problem, we're just gonna have to abandon the plan.
And I got one other question, then I'll be quiet after that. What are your feelings with the rock quarry there? Is that a big nuisance to you, a potential resale value of your property? That's a concern of mine also.
Well, first of all, the quarry and we have been living together for 30 years, and we're aware of the fact that they do blasting quite often. They've had their permit expanded by the county, which the neighborhood fought when it was given, but it was given, and I must say, I think the quarry has been good neighbors since that time, and I guess even before that. We have had a shallow well that we lost. We have no idea if it had anything to do with the quarry or not. We're hoping that on this property we would bring in rural water, so there would not be a concern there. In terms of the blasting, I mean, we're living with it now, and I don't think it'd really make any difference between where we are now and where we would build in terms of disruption for us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for him? I guess not at this time, but we may call you back.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody else here in the audience that wishes to address this item? Please come forward to state your name and address.
Tim Nicolai, 48110 Skyview Circle. Neighbor to Bill, about a third of my backyard touches a lot that Bill wants to build on, and about 2/3 of my lot touches a lot that he wants to move the eligibility off from. And I sent some pictures today to staff, kind of showing what the water actually does. When we do get rain events out there, are once a year, 100-year events. And the situation we have out there is over about 1/8 of a mile of a drain passageway off from what I kind of describe as a pasture up on the east side there that resembles a granite parking lot, pasture. It drops about 40 feet or 20 feet in elevation over about 1/8 of a mile. And when that water comes down, it comes down pretty quick, and it needs a place to go. And the easement that was granted between 267th Street and the property that Bill and Deb would like to build on, there's just not a good place to let that water go through anywhere that I can see. I don't see how a person, you know, and could do an engineering of any sort at all, because there's granite all the way along the top of that that easement sticking out of the ground there. So I would be very interested to see what an engineer could do with that easement. You know, I'm happy to see that Bill's willing to at least try to see what an engineer could do with it, but at this point, I don't have much faith in that easement being an entrance to that property at this point. The map that we've got on the notice doesn't really show a real accurate movement of what the easement or what piece of property we're moving the easement from either. But the whole thing is we do have water problems out there. The question was asked, do we have water issues out in that area? I had to move, or I had to replace my septic system 2 years ago. We had a new house built out in the area on another property out there that had an eligibility. No fault to the owners that built their new house, but just 2 new rooftops out there, a horse barn and a new house, was just enough to break the camel's back, where my septic system that I had caused my septic system to finally fail, and the neighbor between my house and the new house has been constantly pumping water ever since. The interesting part is the house that was built is on a hill quite a bit higher than I am, and they've been pumping water quite a bit of the time since they built the house. So there's water issues out there all the way around. So I would be not real eager to grant or allow this eligibility to go forward without considering the negative effects that it's going to have on the other property owners. The Bowwinkle house that would be right next to this property to the north, it would affect them negatively. This water runs right between, over top of their property as well. This easement goes across the back of their property. The other property on 267th Street, I think it would spread the water out across his property as well. And then the other negative problem we have is the county culvert that goes under 481st. That culvert is about a foot higher than what the ground level is there. So when the water gets there, it just sits there in the front yards of that person and doesn't go anywhere. But then the neighbor that's across the road on the other side, or on the west side of 481st, is getting all of that water as well. So, you know, we do need a water study out there, and the more rooftops we get and the more we change that water flow in that area out there, I think the worse it's going to get. So we really do need to look at what we're going to do out there with adding more rooftops and changing our waterways. So I've mentioned the elevation drops from the 1340 on top of the hill, and water flows about 1/8 of a mile down to 1320. The situation with having to go to a mound septic system from a traditional septic system like I did, the county culvert, and then the placement of wherever his buildings would be, no matter where he places his buildings on that piece of property, is going to dump right on top of my new septic system, because that's where I was told to put my new septic system is right there, and that corner of my yard is going to be right next to his property. That's where my new septic is at. So, and then I don't know if it makes any difference or not, but You know, I don't know if his, if like his buildings and stuff, down there, if we're gonna be a conforming use, to the old, barn and everything down there with his old, barn and where the eligibility is gonna be taken from, since that building built down there, so. It goes on, but, I'm willing to work with my neighbor too. I think we both built out there we've both been out there about 30 years. So, like to keep it a happy neighborhood. But it's gonna affect a lot of people if it goes wrong. It's gonna affect a lot of people.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this item? Would you come forward, state your name and address, please?
My name is Jeff Kreibel. My address is 48097 Red Rock Drive. I live just west of Bill. And the only question that I would have to Bill is the original house that's right there at this particular point in time. Is there any plans to tear that down, to resell it? I'm just kind of curious what the next purpose or the next step for that house is.
Okay, thank you. We'll have him address that. Anyone else care to speak to this item? State your name and address, please.
Yep. R.J. Wright, 48198 267th Street. My brother and I own the farm ground. We've got about 260 acres just to the east of this, where Bill wants to move the eligibility. And then we also rent a small pasture, a 12-acre pasture just to the north of our ground. And my concerns kind of mirror what Tim was talking about, and what we're concerned about a little bit, and is how you, if my understanding is correct, we're working with a 25-foot wide easement on your road you're talking about putting in. Is that correct?
We'll let him address it. Why don't you just say what you need to say, and then we'll have him come up and try to answer some of the
What I'm
questions.
trying to say is, that's right on, is I just think that's our concerns, is we're right on the bedrock there, and if you're only 25 foot wide, it's like, how do you form a ditch or get the right elevation or get the right culverts to allow the water that's coming from the east to move through there and keep moving?
Anyone else care to speak to this item? David, is there anybody there on Zoom?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Bill, would you come up and maybe address some of those items that they have questions of?
I'll try, Madam Chair, and hopefully somebody was jotting them down in case I can't remember them all. First of all, we do not want to build in our neighborhood and make problems worse for anybody else. We aren't going to do that. But it's hard for us to know whether we would be creating those problems or not, and I dare say it's hard for our neighbors to know either, unless we do a study and see if there's a solution. And once we know whether there's a solution or not, then I guess we can move forward from there. The house that's there now, which is the house we live in, would be sold as a house. I mean, it's a great house. Like I said, we'd continue to live there if it didn't have so many stairs in it. But we're absolutely not going to tear it down. It's a good house, and it would be sold so that we could build the new house. Was there other questions that? Oh, the easement. I don't know for sure. I thought it was like 20 to 25 feet. The planning report said about 30 feet. So I'm not exactly sure. But when we have Sarah go out there and explore the property and do the surveying and everything else, then we would know.
Bill, I just got one question about that easement. Once that would be put in, who would be responsible for maintaining that? Would you, the property owner of that, or would the township have to be notified and we get there okay?
You mean for the entrance into the
Entrance
property?
off 267.
From 267 into the.
Yep, coming south.
That would be our driveway.
That would be your driveway?
Yeah.
Okay, so the township would have no involvement in that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? I think you might have answered them for now.
May I ask one? I don't know if it's appropriate in the commission meeting or just to.
Go ahead. Somebody will have to address
If
it.
you want to put it off, that's fine. But, we have this building eligibility, and if we can't use it there, what do we do with it? I guess is my question.
David, can you address that?
Either way, the building eligibility that stands under consideration right now is listed as conditional use. So it requires the planning commission hearing to be able to either make it available anywhere on that existing property, or as they're doing right now, since they own all of the parcels along here, they can transfer it with the same request. To answer your question.
So could we transfer it to a non-adjacent property?
No, it has to be touching.
Did he answer your question?
Yes, he did. In other words, this is the only lot we have.
Anyone else care to speak to this item?
Madam Chair, this is Jeff.
Go ahead.
It seems like we have sort of a chicken and the egg thing. We have the drainage thing, and we have, possible engineering miracle to solve the drainage thing. But we don't want to do the drainage study until we permit the transfer. If we permit the transfer, but don't give a building permit until the drainage plan is available, would that be a solution? Does anybody think?
Did you hear
In
this?
other words, I don't want to hold it up, but at the same time, we don't have a plan that we can look at. And I'm a little bit familiar with their area, probably not as much as Doug, but it is all rock.
David, can you comment on that?
Jeff is correct. You can have the option if you want to defer the item, or the applicant can come back and produce a drainage plan for the planning commission to look at, and that way the public can look at that as well at a public meeting. There are options available there, if that answers your question.
Jeff, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doug, what's your opinion? You know the area better than I do, although I know it a bit.
Well, what you kind of said, I totally agree with. I know water's a big issue right there. A dry year when it's not raining, yeah, you wouldn't think twice about it, but reality is we do have water, rain, snow, ice. We have moisture, and that area, it all goes through there. And I know there's a pool of water there when we do get a heavy rain because the culvert's too high, going under 481st Street. So that's a huge concern to me, why engineers didn't realize that when they put it in there. So we can blame engineers on that fault. But I really do have reservations. I would like to have a water study or a drainage study done on this before I would feel comfortable in voting to approve or deny. So there's kind of my two bits. So if anybody else would have anything else they'd like to say on this matter, please do right now.
Commissioners, any further comments?
Madam Chair, it's Jeff again. I hate to be the only one that does most of the talking, but I would sort of like to approve it, but not give a building permit until we have been able to see what might be done. And if it's a high culvert, we could talk to the highway department. I think it's a county road, isn't it, Doug?
Yes, it is.
So we could talk to the highway superintendent and get some of his ideas, and, you know, I could certainly drive out there and take a look at it. It's not, I just haven't been that way for probably, except for a Sunday drive, for quite a long time.
Any other comments, commissioners?
Madam Chair, Adam Morehauser.
Go
I
ahead.
was wondering if we deferred, or can we just ask for a drainage study first, or I guess is that what we're coming down to? Is that what we want to decide on before approval?
David, do you want to comment on that?
You could do that. You could ask for more information, say it's not complete, and then it would bring it back at a time that you would specify, or however long that would take.
I guess I'd like to see a drainage field study on it with, there's so many neighbors to the south there. I think it would be a good idea to see how many people it affects and how much water flow they predict, I guess.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I think,
I don't know. I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks too on it.
I think that given the fact that we have several concerns about about the water and the drainage, and the way that the condition was written, it was to have the drainage study done before we issued a building permit. But I think that maybe the best course of action here is that, and I know that the applicant doesn't probably want to pay for the drainage study, but I think it's going to be warranted in order to calm all the neighbors. Because if we approve this with the condition that they provide it prior to the building permit, it's not going to give any of the neighbors any time to review it or to comment on it in this public forum, and I think maybe it's better to do that. So I would maybe suggest that it would be wise of the County Planning Commission to reword the condition that you continue it for maybe 1 or 2 months. I'm not sure how long a drainage study would need, how long SARE would need to put a drainage study together, and then bring it back to the County Planning Commission. And that would give anyone from the public could review that drainage plan prior to the meeting.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff again.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm going to make a motion to defer for 2 months, but Scott, can you give Mr. Radio my contact info, and I would be glad to meet him out there and take a look at things.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion is made and seconded to defer the conditional use permit 2103. Any further comments or questions? Roll call vote. Jeff?
March. I'm going to get a date for you.
Okay.
just had one more comment. If you do plan on doing a water study, I would really recommend doing it from where the new house is and following the water all the way down to the river. I, again, live just west of that, and the culvert that's under the 481 is like 40, 50 inches wide, and it has to go through my driveway, which has a culvert that's only about 30 inches wide. And then there may be other problems down the road of this extra water that may just, to be sure that that doesn't negatively impact anybody else downstream as well. Just my comment.
Just so the audience and everyone here knows, that meeting would be March 22nd.
Okay, I do have a motion and a second on the floor. And we have a roll call vote. Jeff Barth,
Aye.
Adam Morehauser,
Aye.
Doug Odie.
Aye.
Mike Ralston,
Aye.
Nancy Randall,
Aye.
Ryan Batterflit,
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. This item will be deferred for 2 months. That meeting will be March 22nd. Move on to item number 6. If your item has been approved or you've already been stated what you needed to, you're free to go. Item number 6 is conditional use permit 21-04 to allow a manufactured house on the property legally described as Tract 1, HHW Addition, Northwest Quarter, Section 32, Township 101 North, Range 52 West. Petitioner is Sarah and Nick Ellsworth, approximately 10 miles south of Humboldt. Kevin?
Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. Conditional use permit number 2104 for manufactured house. This item would have typically appeared on your consent agenda in a normal meeting setting. So I'll just highlight that it is for a manufactured house on this property. I'll show some of the petitioners submitted this site plan. The slope goes pretty quick down to the stream, so he's keep it close to that southwest corner of the property. There's the property there with the stream in the background. And then there's probably the nearest residence along the highway as well. And there's looking south along the highway. Staff is recommending approval of this with 4 conditions. And we can take any questions from there.
Any questions for Kevin? Guess not at this time. Is a petitioner here? Will you please come forward and state your name and address?
Sarah Ellsworth and Nick Ellsworth at 1500 South Rock Creek Drive in Sioux Falls.
Any questions for them?
I got a kind of silly one.
Go ahead, Doug.
Why do you want to move out to the country?
Land.
Okay,
Want more land.
Land, yeah.
okay. Smell, traffic doesn't bother you?
No.
Good. All right, that's my simple question.
Any other questions for them? Thank you. David, anybody on Zoom?
No hands are raised.
Anyone else care to speak to this item? Will you please come forward, state your name and address?
Bill Gaston, 4547 2268th Street. We have the land to the west, and I just want to go on the record that there's probably, when things straighten out with the egg thing, there's going to be probably the first building to be 5,000 head of hogs across the road from them. And it does be good to hear that they don't care about the smell, because that'd be the biggest issue. But I just want to be on the record. I want to get along with my neighbors. And somebody that's moving out of Sioux Falls, I'm kind of wondering if they really realize what agriculture's like. That's my concerns for what they're worth. You know, it'd be a terrible thing to have somebody put up a house and then we put up something else there and then they don't like it. That would be bad for everybody, and it happens. But I just want them to be aware of this, So there's nothing bad happening down the road. Understandable?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was that the only person, Scott? Okay. Commissioners?
Doug Odie will make a motion to approve conditional use permit 21-04.
Ryan Vandervliet, second.
Who is that second?
Ryan Vandervliet.
Thank you. A motion's been made and seconded to approve conditional use permit 21-04. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, roll call vote. Jeff Barth?
Aye.
Adam Morehauser?
Aye.
Doug Odie?
Aye.
Mike Ralston?
Aye.
Becky Randall?
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflit?
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. That item has been approved. You're free to go. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7. Conditional use permit 21-05 to allow dismantling salvage vehicles, store and sell auto parts online, and sell used vehicles on the property legally described as Lot 2, Block 3, Haug Section Addition, Southeast Quarter, Section 12, Township 102 North, Range 50 West. Pardon me if I get your name wrong. Vladimir Skinder, Haug Development has he's the property owner, located 2.5 miles north of Sioux Falls. Kevin?
Yes, Kevin Hookman again. The petitioner is requesting for automotive-related uses, including salvage vehicles for parts, selling used vehicles. And both uses require a conditional use permit. The petitioner will be operating out of an existing building. It'll be the west building or the building on the left on this highlighted property, or at least even just a portion of the building. He plans to use the space in between these two buildings for some storage of vehicles. Staff did stop and see the property. I'll show some photos here. So this is the property from Cottonwood Avenue, which is the paved road. And there is like a contractor shop closer to the road. And then this is going to be the building that the operation is going to be out of, but it's going to be on the back side of this building. So these are just the stored units in the front. This is the street that'll be that the access will be off of. And then this is the area where the petitioner will be operating the business from. There is a similar development in the industrial park that was approved in 2019. And conditions can be placed on the property to limit negative effects on surrounding properties. It's a fairly small operation. Staff is recommending approval of the request with 9 conditions. And I am available for any questions.
Any questions for him?
Kevin, just a quick question here. Like right under your staff analysis, the second paragraph. Within the building with some outside storage. Some is kind of a broad term. So what are they planning, or do you see?
So, condition number, let's see here. Some of the conditions do address the outdoor storage. For example, condition number 3 addresses that outdoor storage of vehicles shall be limited to the space between buildings. No vehicle parts should be stored outside. So the purpose of that is that only full intact vehicles shall be stored outside, because once you get parts, They start to pile. They also have problems with rusting and other fluids draining off them when there's parts there. And then also there's an inclusion of number 5, that no stacking or piling of vehicles, materials, parts, or similar items shall be higher than 6 feet tall off the ground. So,
Any other questions for Kevin? Guess not right now. Is the petitioner here? Will you please come forward and state your name and address?
My name is Vladimir Skinder. I live in 4909 North Pennsylvania Avenue, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 57107. Sorry, me not speak very well English. This meeting very important for me. This my son, and help for me translate, please. I open in business, що ми відкрили бізнес і продаємо запчасті. Починали ще вдома, а зараз зняли гаража і шапа, і така наша робота.
He opened.
Can you be by the mic, please?
Sure. He had opened the business to sell used auto parts online on eBay, and he started from his home garage, and then he had a storage, and now he rent out a bigger shop, as you seen on pictures, and he's looking to get a dealer's license so he could purchase vehicles himself on the auction.
Покупаю машины у дилера, и платим ему фи, а мы хотим, чтобы мы могли сами покупать и на акшене, и у людей, и продавать запчасти.
Right now, with having no dealer's license and the permissions to get a license, he needs to buy vehicles for parts from other dealers with a high price. But having a dealer's license, he could apply for auction license and then buy vehicles from auctions for much lower price, and then grow his business that way. And has a lot with the dealer's license, he has a lot more options and a lot more places where he could buy vehicles for parts.
І ми маємо клієнтів, яким ми можемо теж купляти їм машини і щоб їм продавати. Як ми продаємо через других людей, вони нас беруть гроші.
And we also would like to sell cars. That's not my main goal, having a dealer license. To sell cars, we'll sell cars, a few, because people are asking us to find cars, good cars, and sell them to them. But our main business will be to sell parts, and having a dealer license will be very beneficial to have access to more cars on auction.
І в цій ерії ми не маємо там трафіки, до нас не їдуть клієнти, ми продаємо тільки на онлайн.
And in the area, we don't create any traffic because most of our sales, everything is online and inside the building.
Any questions for them? Okay, I guess not right now, anyway. Scott, is there anyone else?
No, I checked.
Okay.
No one is in the audience.
Anybody on Zoom?
Let's see.
I'm not seeing any hands up. David said there was somebody. Is there anybody who wants to speak to this?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I'm sure this is Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I guess since there is no other speakers on it, I'd like to ask the applicant and his friend a question, which is, you know, we've had other issues with properties like this turning into junkyards. In fact, there's been an issue in this same industrial park here. And I'm wondering if they fully understand the concerns that we have about that type of deterioration. You know, should it just turn into a mess?
А, Ця територія, вона буде дуже чиста. Там не буде ні мусора, там не буде ні парцу, там джанки там не буде.
It's the territory, the parking lot, the territory will be very clean. We're not planning to have a junkyard. The parts are all stored inside, and the vehicle bodies are taken out to the steel recycling place.
That answer your question, Jeff?
I guess I have a question for staff at this point, which is, you know, do we have enough latitude for enforcement should things go out of whack on this project? Because otherwise, it's a fine project. I just want to state the kinds of problems we've had in several other locations.
Kevin, you want to comment on that?
I guess, you know, the conditions that we have here, the 9 of them, that includes storage conditions that we discussed, as well as unloading conditions for no unloading and loading in the right-of-way. I guess if there's anything else that we need to add to it, we can, to make sure that there's nothing that can be out of whack, like you said, going forward. But I guess I feel like this would be enough to enforce anything that would become a problem.
Thank you.
Commissioners?
Madam Chair, this is Mike Wilson. I guess understanding that we do have some capacity for enforcement, and also understanding there already is a precedent somewhat set by having a similar operation within this industrial park. I guess I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Jeff.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve conditional use permit 21-05. Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth?
Aye.
Adam Morehauser?
Aye.
Doug Odie?
Aye.
Mike Ralston?
Aye.
Becky Randall?
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflit?
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. Conditional use permit 21-05 has been approved. You're free to go.
Thank you so much.
Move on to item number 8. Conditional use permit 21-06 to allow a campground, camp store, and bathhouse on the property legally described as the east half, the northwest quarter, the southeast quarter, and the northeast quarter, the southeast quarter, except H-1 and except Tract 1, Albine's Addition. Section 36, Township 101 North, Range 51 West. Petitioner is Francis Phillips, property owner is the same, 3 miles west of Sioux Falls. Kevin?
Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. This item is to a request for a campground to be located with the Wildwater West Water Park. The petitioner is requesting 90 camper sites with several tent sites and the potential to expand to some cabins on the property as well. The property is zoned A1 agriculture, and campgrounds are allowed in the A1 agricultural zoning district with a conditional use permit. The petitioner has set up or provided site plans. So there's the proposed site plan. The site plan and narrative incorporate both storm shelters, or bathrooms, dump stations for the campers, as well as the future additions for cabins to be when they are desired. This is an unusual night, I guess, is that we're going to be talking about two different campgrounds. So some of these items will be kind of addressed. So as goes one, might go the other. The proposed campground is located with an existing recreational amusement park. There are rural subdivisions located to the east and a mix of rural acreages and a commercial property to the south. I guess I'll pull up the map again. And that commercial property is the event barn that was approved by the Planning Commission a few years ago to allow weddings and that sort of thing. The campground does have the potential to affect the area in that the current use is daytime use only, and allowing a campground will allow people to stay overnight. So there is a potential that you would now add some nighttime traffic, potentially for some nighttime noise, such as loud people, or maybe somebody uses the radio. Staff does address this in the report, say that perhaps a staff member on the site would help address any nuisance people or unruly people, as long as they're there all the time. That way they won't disturb neighbors nor other campers on the property. Probably one of the bigger concerns for the property involves both bathrooms and storm shelters. The petitioner, I'll go to the storm shelter. Petitioner has included a description for the proposed storm shelter for severe weather. The bathroom facilities are planned to double up as a storm shelter with a suggestion of 300 people capacity for the storm shelter. And that's roughly 3 people per campsite for an estimate of how many people would use a storm shelter if necessary. The definition of storm shelter, if you were to follow the rules, say for the International Building Code, would be fairly strict in being able to withstand high velocity winds. And I will note that, as in the staff report here, that not even the state parks typically have a true storm shelter that would protect from these high velocity winds. So it would be up to the Planning Commission here to kind of discuss what is the definition of storm shelter we'll be working with. It could be a certified storm shelter that meets building code, or something that would more be a block or concrete walled structure that is designed to withstand some wind. Staff's biggest concern is that if wind comes along and starts and possibly blow over or tip campers and cause problems. The staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit 2106 with 11 conditions, and I think I'm going to read these conditions off so that everybody's aware of what will be here. The permit is to allow the operation of a private campground for recreational camping from May 1st through September 30th. The use shall be limited to a maximum of 100 camper sites with hookups and 10 cabins. Tent sites are to be determined by the operator. Cabins shall be limited to a maximum of 480 square feet in size and shall not include a kitchen. Number 4, a campground host or employee must be available on site at all times while the campground is occupied with any campers. Number 5, no storage of recreational vehicles is allowed outside of operational camping season of May 1st through September 30th. Number 6, a minimum of 1 dump station shall be available for campers to dump wastewater prior to leaving the campground. All on-site wastewater systems must be constructed and operated in conformance with Minnehaha County on-site wastewater treatment ordinance. No dumping of any wastewater shall be allowed at the site unless disposed of in a properly sized and maintained wastewater system. Number 7, a minimum of one source of potable water must be provided to campers. Number 8, any campfires must be within a fire pit designed to contain the spread of fire. 9, the campground must have an available bathroom stall for each male and female gender for every 30 or part thereof campsites or cabins without facilities. Number 10, the campground must have 15 square feet of storm shelter for each campsite and cabin within the park. Number 11, the county planning department reserves the right to enter and inspect the property at any time, provided the prior notice is given to the property owner to ensure that the site is proper compliance with the 1990 revised zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County. Kind of go through some of the photos here. So there's the site plan. The plan for this campground will be to go off the existing parking lot to the south of the property and then head past kind of a caretaker's house or building there, and then have access to the rest of the property, the rest of the campground. Right here is a photo of a building that is to be removed and reconstructed. And that building that will be there will be the shop and like a camp bathroom and a kind of a gathering area. This area here will be planned for future tent sites. And then there's the little house or cabin. This was looking directly south of that little cabin area to the blue barn. That got pretty dark in that photo there, but you can see at least the rooftops there. There are some trees and shrubs that I believe are just volunteer trees and shrubs along the south part of the property line there. There's the driveway. And then there's going to be where the larger camp area will be. And then here's a drainage ditch on the south side of the property that I presume most of the water will be draining towards this, and a couple of those volunteer trees that I was talking about. I'll bring it back to that campground layout. I will note that the campground layout also includes like a bathhouse in the center of those campgrounds there. You can maybe see it on the bigger screen per se. It says bathhouse. And then the septic system then goes off to the west and then north up to a septic field that is engineered to handle everything that's provided. And I will take any questions at that.
Any questions for Kevin? Yes, not at this time. Is the petitioner here? Will you please come forward, state your name and address?
Francis Phillips, General Manager of Wildwater West, Carter Place, Sioux Falls.
Any questions for him?
Madam Chair, it's Jeff here.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Mr. Phillips, have you reached out to the neighbors in the area to let them know what the plan is here?
By way of letter, I have, yes.
Okay.
I have not had any responses from the neighbors since that went out here a few weeks ago, a few weeks ago maybe.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for him? Guess not at this time. David, is there anybody on Zoom?
No hands are raised.
Hands are raised. Anyone else here in the room wish to address this item? Commissioners?
Madam Chair, is there any other people to speak on this at the meeting?
Hang on, there's nobody on Zoom. Scott's checking. No, there's not, Jeff.
Madam Chair, could I have the petitioner come back up? I got to ask him
Sure.
a question.
Will you please come forward again? He's got a question.
I'm just really, how does the land lay? Is there going to be any problem for any water issues as far as if you get a huge rain, it's going to be pooling in this area or not?
We were originally approved to do this in 2006. After we got our approval, then we knew that we were okay to go ahead with the project. So then we spent a lot of money on additional surveys and found out that there was going to be some drainage issues, not to mention septic issues. So over the last few years, we've addressed them. So the drainage is fine. Septic is now approved through the DENR, so that's why we pulled the trigger now to get this project going.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff. I make a motion to approve a conditional use permit 21-06.
This is Becky Randall, I second.
I have a motion and second to approve conditional use permit 21-06. Any further comments or questions? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth?
Aye.
Adam Maharazer?
Aye.
Doug Odie?
Aye.
Mike Ralston?
Aye.
Becky Randall?
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflick?
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. This item has been approved. You are free to go. Item number 9, conditional use permit 21-07 to transfer two building eligibilities from the west half, southwest quarter, and 100 feet RY Rao to the northeast quarter, northwest quarter, Lot 2, Benson's First Edition. There is an exception of Tract 1, Lefko Addition, Section 21, 102 North, Range 51 West. Petitioner is Lefko Incorporated. Property owner Warren Luke, about a half mile west of Hartford. Scott?
Thank you, Scott Anderson. And this is a conditional use permit request to move two building eligibilities directly on the west side of Hartford, moving them basically from next to the city limits straight north up to Highway 38. I can show you here on the map. There is already there's already a house up in that north quarter section. The city of Hartford is growing in that direction, so it makes some sense to move the building eligibility up to the north. They will not increase the overall density of the area. They would need to, as I indicated in the staff report, they would need to get permission for the approach permit from the state highway, because the approach would be off South Dakota Highway 38. And we're recommending approval with the two conditions. One, that there'd be a right to farm covenant notice filed on the property before a building permit. And the second one would be that they get that approach permit from DOT for their new approach. And I can show you some pictures, but basically it's just an empty field right now. This is looking west on Highway 38, and this is looking back towards Hartford. But this is where the property is located. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Scott? I guess not. Is the petitioner here? Will you please come forward? State your name and address. Can you tell us who you are and your address, please?
I'm Warren Luke. We live by Wall Lake, 46260, 265th Street. We own this property that's on the west edge of Sioux Falls, or west edge of Hartford. We've owned it for approximately 50 years. Back 50 years ago, this was fairly compatible with the small town of Hartford. As they've grown and become more urban, we agree with them that the farming operation, the livestock operation that we have there is not as compatible as it should be. So by moving these eligibilities to the north on Highway 38, which is adjacent to another farm that we have across the road, we can expedite moving our livestock operation that's on Western Avenue right on the west edge of Hartford, moving that livestock operation to the north. And we worked with the city of Hartford for quite a while now to come to some sort of agreement with them that would be satisfactory to both of us. So we own approximately 250 acres on the west in section 21, which is a section right west of Hartford. And it's in somewhat of a T shape, runs a mile east and west and a mile north and south. And consequently, we need to maintain that operation as an agricultural operation, a livestock operation, but we'd like to move the emphasis of it farther north and farther west. So that's the reason for this situation.
Any questions for him? Thank you. Anyone on Zoom? David?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Commissioners?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve conditional use permit 21-07.
Ryan Vandervliet, second that.
I have a
I'll second that.
motion and second to approve conditional use permit 21-07. Any further comments or questions? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth?
Aye.
Hauser?
Aye.
Doug Odie?
Aye.
Mike Ralston?
Aye.
Vicki Randall?
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflit?
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. That item has been approved. You're free to go, sir. Move on to number 10. Conditional use permit 21-08 to allow self-service motor vehicle display and sales on the property legally described as Tract 1, Odie's Second Edition, in the north 272 feet, the south 344 feet, the east 234 feet, the west half, the northeast quarter of Section 32, 102 North, Range 48 West. Petitioner is Split Rock Square LLC, property owners the same. 1600 West Holly Boulevard in the Brandon area. David?
Good evening, Planning Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. So conditional use permit 21-08. So this property is located at 1600 West Holly Boulevard. It is in the West Brandon area. It's actually surrounded by the city limits of Brandon. As you can see on the map, this is property outlined in red. This actually came to our attention, this request came to our attention as of the result of a site review. Responded to some complaints in the area as far as what was going on out at the site, so we went and checked the site and made sure everything was there. But upon review of checking that, they had cars for sale or listed for sale with signs in the window parked in front of the fenced-in outdoor storage area, which was the original conditional use permit. So the applicant is requesting, as a part of this one, to allow self-service motor vehicle display and sales on the property. There is a small area outside the fenced-in area, as you can see on the site plan concept that the applicant has provided. It's located at the lower right-hand corner of the lines there in the white. It's labeled concrete on the map. And then, so this is the image of what that looks like. As you can see, there's a truck there and there's a van. Both of those vehicles have signs in the windows listed for sales when they went out to the site on the 22nd of December, is when I made the inspection. So here's the approach off of Holly Boulevard, extends to the north. As you can see, the gate is in the background for the storage area that's been previously approved. And this is just looking at, there was also a billboard that was approved off to the distance there, permitted. So this is just looking again at that site, that little square area, the concrete, with the parking area off to the right of the image. And this is just showing the setback from the property line. There is, for the zoning ordinance, requires 15-foot setback from the property line to the fenced-in storage area. As you can see there, is what that shows. And this is just continuing on that, showing that right away and that setback. Again, this is showing that setback looking back towards the entrance to the facility. There is like a trailer sign that's parked within that, but that is not part of the parking area for the vehicles. So again, this is showing that 15-foot setback. I couldn't measure exactly where the property line was, but it looked like it was a little bit closer. Staff does have some concerns about keeping that and making sure that it's 15 feet back. So that just kind of shows the surrounding area, mostly residential to the south of Holly Boulevard in the city limits on top of the hilltop there. And then this is looking at the closer view of the gate for the background area with the cars off to the side. And then the cars for sale, it's labeled like a park and sell your vehicle. Staff contacted the city of Brandon for their review on this request to allow car sales on the site and display. And they have no issues with the proposed use for selling cars. Staff finds that the proposed use is appropriate for the surrounding area and conforms to the goals and policies of the envisioned 2030 comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit 21-08 with the following conditions. That conditional use permit 21-08 shall allow self-service motor vehicle display and sales. 2, the site shall conform to section 2(1) of ordinance MC 3304, declaration of abatement and public nuisances. All vehicles must be both fully licensed and operational in the display area. 3, all driving and parking areas shall be hard surface to the standards of the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance. The hard surface shall be installed by August 31st, 2021. 4, that the parking lot shall maintain a minimum setback of 15 feet from the front property line. 5, that all outside lighting shall be of a shoebox style, directing lights directly downward onto the property. And 6, that all signage shall be in conformance with the Article 16 and 17 of the 1990 revised zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County. And a building permit is required for the installation of any signage. And I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for David?
David, Jeff Barth here. David, do they need to have a dealer's license or sell cars like that? And should that be a requirement?
I think the applicant can clarify on that, but I think it's not the applicant, it's people that are selling their vehicles on that site. So there may be some things that need to be worked out with
I
that.
understand the target market, I just didn't know if that's required or not. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, is the petitioner here? Will you please come forward and state your name and address?
Lee Skelling, 204 Elm Circle, Brandon.
Any questions for him?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Doug.
I got one for Lee. Unless you might think, why are you so picky? When people park and sell, is there a great concern about vandalism done to their vehicles? My question is, would it be smart to have a security camera there, so if there gets to be a problem, somehow you can turn it over to the law enforcement?
We
and
do have
hope-
security cameras. There's a big pole right there that's well lit and observes that. Basically, this is just a community service to Brandon. When you have frontage property, people want to park their stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
So it's all at their risk if there's,
yeah, they have a form that they have to sign, you know what I mean, so that we can control that. Otherwise, you would have, you know.
okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions for him? It's not at this
This
time.
is Cindy Wegop. I'm on Zoom. I have a question.
Okay.
Or actually, I have several questions. My name is Cindy Wegop. I live at 204 South Heritage Road. What kind of regulations will be around what is sold and how long they're allowed to sit there? I mean, is this going to be something that somebody's going to park a car there and it'll sit there for a year trying to sell it, and we got to look at that every single time we drive up and down the street? We live in the Bluffs, you know, and a lot of these homes out here are $500,000 homes. I mean, we never had any idea a structure such as this was going to be built across the street from basically the entrance in and out of that development. You know, I have problems with the looks of what's currently there. You know, asking, my question is going to be, is there going to be any plans for any landscaping to obstruct the view and make it nicer looking to fit into the neighborhood? Right now, it just seems like it just was plopped there, and now we're going to add more eyesores to what's already there by allowing whoever to park a vehicle there for whatever length of time. You know, the structure really does not fit into the landscape of the area it was put in. And it's unfortunate that it ever passed to go into this area.
Can you address any of that?
What do you want me to address? The length of the vehicle, people pay by week.
Okay.
So that eliminates that. Obviously, we're a storage facility, so it's, you know what I mean, if they're gonna long-term park something, they're not gonna park it there. This was just down the road on the edge of Brandon by the railroad tracks. This same thing. We just built the building there, and people ask, we want to sell stuff, so that's kind of why we moved it over.
Okay. Thank you. David, is
Are
there?
you saying that as
What's
long as they're paying week by week by week, their vehicle could sit there forever and ever? There's no guidelines as to, you know, if it doesn't sell in 3 months, they have to remove it?
I think they pay $20 a week, so $80 a month, and they could store that same vehicle in our facility for $30 a month inside the security gate. So typically, we have not had a problem with that.
Is there any plans to do any landscaping around the chain link fence that with the slats that were put up to kind of make it look a little nicer and fit into the neighborhood better? Any trees and evergreens and things like that planted?
Not at this point.
Is that something you would consider doing to make the neighbors happy?
I don't think you would put a tree in front where the car would be potentially.
No, I'm talking about to hide the fence and all of that chain link fence around that area. If you've got 15 feet of setback, it sounds like there'd be room for trees and some landscaping to be done around that fenced-in area. Lee, is that something you would consider doing?
I don't know if that's the issue that's we're addressing right here.
Well, I just think adding these cars, that anybody is going to park any old kind of car here for weeks, months, possibly on end, like I said, is just going to add additional eyesore to the structure that's already there. It's quite unfortunate if this passes, that they would allow something like this in the neighborhood that you're proposing to put this.
Thank you. I guess you can sit
My
down.
understanding that this this lot is going to be paved.
There's
And
recycled.
how many cars are going to be allowed to sit here?
That's a recycled asphalt that the car is on, and then that green.
Pardon me?
That's recycled asphalt, and then you see where the green is. That was hydro seeded. So we hydro seeded.
Cars will not sit on the green area.
No, because they would leave a root. I mean, that's grass, it's front yard.
Yes. So it's not going to be paved then, it's just like gravel basically, or recycled asphalt is just like crushed gravel basically.
Well, it's not crushed gravel, it's recycled asphalt.
How many cars are going to be allowed to be parked in this vicinity?
I think if you look there, how that's spaced, there would probably be potential for 4 along the front. I don't know that exact measurement, if that's 50 feet from the driveway to the lot line.
And will there be a row behind those in the front row?
I don't think it'll allow enough to come and go there. That makes sense?
Yes. Again, I don't really see the need for this in this area. I mean, there's so many used car lots in and around Minnehaha County that we don't need to sit 4 or 5 cars out on Rice Street here leading into Brandon. It really is an eyesore, and I would ask that this does not get approved. And I can't imagine that for the little bit of money you're going to be making every week on these, Lee, it even makes sense.
David, is there anybody else on Zoom?
No other hands are raised.
Is there anybody else in the audience that care to speak on this item? I'm going to close the floor. Commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Jeff?
this is Jeff, yeah. I have a memory of when we did approve this first part here, and I think that perhaps, the city of Brandon should consider making an agreement to consider what their wishes are, as well as the county's wishes, that close to the city of Brandon. But they have not done that. In fact, we even brought this up to them, and they didn't feel it was a bad thing. So when we try to regulate things out in the county, it may not look great to people that live in expensive houses in the city, but we all had a chance to buy that property or move there at some point, and I'm going to move that we approve this project. Change happens, it won't stay the same forever, and I do think that the applicant could dress it up a little bit, but we're talking about stuff out in the county. It could be a trailer park there, it could be a animal unit there, it could be a fertilizer plant. It's in the county, it's not in the city, and so it doesn't have the delights that the city prefers to have. So again, I made a motion to approve.
But everything around it is in the city, so
It's not your turn to talk,
No.
Cindy.
A motion is on the floor at this time. Do I have a second?
Ryan Vandervliet to second that.
Adam Moore, I'll second that.
I have a motion second to approve conditional use permit 21-08. We have a roll call vote. Jeff Barth,
Aye.
Adam Morehauser,
Aye.
Doug Odie,
Aye.
Mike Ralston,
Aye.
Becky Randall,
Aye.
Brian Benefit,
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. That conditional use permit has been approved. You're free to go. Item number 11, conditional use permit 21-09 to transfer one building eligibility from the northeast half or the northeast quarter, the northwest quarter to track 5, Gunderson's Farms Addition, the north half, the northeast quarter, all in section 27, Township 103 North, Range 50 West. Petitioner is Kirsten Swanson, same as the property owner, 2.5 miles north of Crooks. Scott?
Yes, Scott Anderson, and the request is to remove one building eligibility with conditional use permit 2109, as shown on the map, to up at the intersection of the two paved county highways. There has been some other, I think in 2005, we moved the two building eligibilities on the west side of that existing farmstead. There is an existing CAFO. You can see it in the south part of the picture, right above the word transfer. And the applicant is moving the building eligibilities further away from that existing animal feeding operation and from cropland to more agriculture or a pasture land. So it meets the criteria and the desire of our comprehensive plan. We're recommending approval with the two conditions that a right to farm notice be filed and that prior to a building permit being obtained, they obtain a approach permit from the County Highway Department. And I'd be glad to show you some pictures. This is where it's from and where it's going. And basically you can see the trees is the existing lot that's to the west, and they'll be moving that building eligibility so between the trees and the two paved county highways there. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Scott? Is the petitioner here?
No.
Are they on Zoom?
I'm sure I don't see any reason that this should not happen, so I'm going to make a motion to approve this transfer.
Doug Odie will second conditional use permit 21-09.
I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 21-09. Any comments or any further questions? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth?
Aye.
Adam Morehauser?
Aye.
Doug Odie?
Aye.
Mike Ralston?
Aye.
Becky Randall?
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflit?
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. Conditional use permit 2109 has been approved. Move on to item 12, conditional use permit 21-10 to make one building eligibility available on property legally described as the west half, the northwest quarter, There is an acceptance for Lot 1 and 2, Peterson's Tract 1, Section 26, Township 103 North, Range 49 West. Petitioner is Dan France, same as the property owner, located about 5 miles southeast of Baltic. David?
Good evening, Planning Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. So conditional use permit 21-10 is to basically make one building eligibility available that is currently listed as conditional use. This property, as you can see, is outlined in red. In 2004, the property owner had combined the two parcels. There are two parcels on that property that were combined for tax purposes. Each one had a building eligibility on it at the time, according to density zoning ordinance. So hence why this one was listed as conditional use. The property owner is requesting to make that available for use. There are no concentrated animal feeding operations within a mile of the subject property. The nearest cattle area is like 2.5 miles away to the southeast of this property. Just going to go through some of the site photos of the site that I took. The existing house is located to the north. As you can see, there's where the applicant currently lives, and this is where the building eligibility would be made available on this site. And then, as you can see to the south, there are a couple other residences down there. There's one that's located within the farm field with a long driveway there. This is located just across the street to the immediate west. There's actually two houses across the street to the west. So if you look south, this is located along 476th. And then this is looking north. As you can see, there's another house to the west that's just right across the street from the existing house where the applicant lives. And then this is the existing driveway. I believe in the questionnaire it did say that there might be potential to use shared driveways. The applicant can clarify on that. And then this is just kind of looking off to the property to the west of the applicant's house. So staff is recommending approval of the request, finds it consistent with density zoning, and recommends approval of conditional use permit 21-10 with the conditions that a right to farm notice of covenant be filed on the deed prior to a building permit being issued for the single-family dwelling, and 2, that a driveway or culvert permit be obtained from Sphere Drip Township prior to the issuance of a building permit. And with that, I'd answer any questions.
Any questions for David? Guess not. Is the petitioner here?
Yes, my name is Dan Franz, 2543 476th Avenue, Baltic.
Commissioners,
And
go ahead.
where we were gonna move the house, or new eligibility, put the new house to the north of the existing house in that shelter belt area. That way we can, because there's already an existing driveway down there. There's 2 driveways on my property already. So that way we can still maintain and use the farmland and already have both driveways.
Commissioners, any questions for him? David, anybody on Zoom?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Anyone here, would you like to come forward, sir? State your name and address.
My name is Brett Sherrill, 25431 476th Avenue. That's a picture of my yard. I'm across the road from this particular spot. The reason I'm here is that I believe the intent of the conditional use permit requirement for this particular petition is that this was actually grandfathered in many years ago. And so I think the intent there was that this is our chance to make sure that this permit, since it was grandfathered so long ago, actually fits in with the current construction and other buildings in the area. So With that, I agree that a single-family home permit is in accordance with that property, but I'd like to ask that some restrictions be put on that at this time also. One of those is that it is restricted to a single-family dwelling. You can see that there are other houses in the area, and we'd like to keep that same theme going with what the buildings are there. The second one is that we'd ask that no mobile homes, trailer homes, or buildings moved into that property, that it be a stick-built home on the property. The reason for that is we could go out and take a look at an Army barracks that was moved from the airport out there, and you'd understand why that moving just any old building probably isn't the best interest in the neighborhood. And then the third restriction and the last one is that we'd ask that you guys have this building permit be put on the original lot. If you look at the property, you can see it's kind of crowded in the one end. There's more space on the other end. And it was said that it originally was two different lots and permitted that way and were combined. And we'd ask that this permit be put on that original space so that it looks like all of the other lots in the area. You have any questions on those requests?
Yeah, I have one question here. Your second one that you stated, you wouldn't want any so-called barrack or something moved on.
Right.
What about like a home built up at Madison or Watertown? Would you have a problem with one of those being moved on there then?
Not at all. I just didn't know how to classify those.
Okay.
Modular homes, trailer homes seem to be one class, but yes, Madison being a stick-built home off-site, new and brought on, that would be certainly agreeable.
Anyone else have any questions for him?
I do, if you can hear me. This is Don Riley, also on the same road. I just can't find how to raise my hand.
Okay, can you tell me your name and
Sure.
address?
25447 476th Avenue, just south and to the west.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my comment to that last restrictions on that is I think if it's a new building, it shouldn't make a difference. If you look at the property and the way they have the plan set up, is the shelter belt is built for the protection of the new structure and that, but the driveway there keeps costs down and it makes the most sense to put it there, which is why the permit went in. So I think from a restriction standpoint of saying no mobile homes is fine in that, but I don't think you should restrict what type of a dwelling they build as long as it's a new one getting put in, whether it's manufactured or from one of the lumber companies or the colonies up there, or if it's from one of the builders in the area. I think it should still fit the neighborhood's decor. We have several different styles all the way up and down and around the mile sections there.
Okay, thank you. Petitioner, can you answer any of those questions or give us an idea what you might be building there?
It will be a stick framed house, no trailer houses. And yeah, it'd be nice to put it up there where the shelter belt is because there's already an existing driveway.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause they planted all the evergreens along the road too, so I mean, it'll be boxed in basically. You won't even, in a few years, you probably won't even see the house.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else care to speak to this item? Okay, I'm gonna close it.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead,
This is
Becky.
Becky. I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I would like to move acceptance of conditional use permit number 21-10 to make a building eligibility available on this property.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 21-10. Any other further comments or questions?
I would just like to just make a comment that this property is zoned agriculture, And agriculture is how it's zoned. And so the permission to build is all contingent on agricultural use in the community. And we are here to determine appropriate land use, and it's appropriate land use to build a home. And we always take into consideration the effect that this is going to have on agriculture. So I do not believe this will have a deterrent on the functioning of agriculture in the community, and therefore I support this conditional use permit.
Thank you, Becky. So I have a motion and a second. We have a roll call vote. Jeff Barth,
Aye.
Adam Morehauser,
Aye.
Bill Godey, Mike Ralston,
Aye.
Becky Randall,
Aye.
Ryan Ediflit,
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. That conditional use permit has been approved. Thank you. Let's move on to number 13. Conditional use permit 21-11 to allow monthly, one-day outdoor market from May to October on the property legally described as Lot 1 through 6, Block 4, Rowena Original, and ICR abandoned ROW, southeast quarter, except part located south of and adjacent to Track 1, Split Rock Feeds Edition, and except Track 1, ICRR Edition, all in Section 26, Township 101 North, Range 48 West. Petitioner is Tessa Taylor, property owner is Sam Assam, located 3.5 miles east of Sioux Falls. Kevin?
Kevin Oakman, County Planning Department. This conditional use permit is to allow monthly one-day outdoor market events on this property. This property has held similar events for a few years, and staff has received continual complaints about primarily parking along for the event. And we have notified the property owner several times that a conditional use permit is required for the use. The petitioner has submitted plans for this use. The plans involve that the events are to happen one day a month on Saturday, I believe is what it was, May through October, with 12 to 15 vendors per event. I'll bring up the site plan. So the petitioner shows parking and vendor area right around the building that is existing on the property. As much of the concern regarding the property area properties in the area revolve around parking, staff does address that extensively throughout the permit or the report. Let's see. Staff calculates parking areas can accommodate approximately 60 customer vehicles with 2 rows of cars at 12 feet wide was what's shown there. But staff would like to have the petitioner accommodate up to 84 off-street parking spaces. This is approximately the size equivalent of 25,000 square foot retail area, which is be a large area for outdoor marketing. So that is is 1,008 linear feet of 12-foot parking stalls. This area can be accommodated through a few different ways on the property. I'll show on the the photos here that there is a little bit of stuff that's being stored on the property that might hinder some potential parking area. And the petitioner will have to work with the landowner to figure out a way to make it work, I guess. There's the nearest residence just to the north of the use. There is the road that it would be servicing the primary use. And then that goes further on north to a storage unit on the north side of the road. So this is the sign highway and a portion of the parking for the existing building. Looking to the east. This is looking straight south. Parking has been known to go along these gravel roads little residential gravel roads. And then this would be looking to the west. So this is an example of what was submitted to staff in the past for the event. And there's the parking situation. Being that this is a fairly fast-moving highway through the town, I think it's 35 in Rowena itself. But it does pose safety issues along the highway. Bring it back to the site plan here. But I do think that the use can be accommodated on the property with the appropriate means and the conditions, including the parking as well as portable toilet requirements for sanitary sewer services for the people that attend and the vendors. And we can take questions from there.
Any questions for Kevin?
Madam Chair, this is Becky.
Go ahead.
I think we have a typo on line 5. It talks about inspecting the daycare. For
Okay.
recommendation number 5.
Oops, on condition number 5.
Yes.
Nice. Yes, that would be typo. So it would be inspecting the use.
Any other questions for him? Guess not at this time. Is the petitioner here? Will you please come forward and state your name and address?
Tessa Taylor, 103 West US Highway 18, Davis, South Dakota.
Any questions for her?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Jeff.
So you're getting along with the neighbors at the little store in town there? You've got the parking problem solved?
Yes, I'm a new renter. The lady that had it before had the 50 to 70 vendors out in that lot where I'm going to use as parking. I'm not going to have it that big. I'm really keeping it a little more low key so we have the room for parking so we don't have that issue. I have talked to the homeowners around the area, also the business owner of the casino, also talked to the manager. I've been trying to be a good neighbor, invited them over to see what I'm doing. I do have one concern with the recommendations, and that's the item number 2. The outdoor storage or display of product or materials is prohibited except during the day of the outdoor event. I completely understand the issues that happened in the past. It took myself and a couple friends almost a month to clean up the mess that was left there prior, which was garbage, debris, liquor bottles. So I understand what the homeowners and business owners had seen in the past, but we do have that area all cleaned up and fenced in. And now we have probably 30% of our sales are from items that are in that fenced-in area. So I hope that'll be a consideration.
I have a question for you. I live out in that area, but are you going to have somebody out there, so that people kind of have an idea where to park, so they aren't parking by the highway?
I did
for
an
safety reasons?
event in September and October, and I don't know if you saw, but we barricaded the highway so nobody could enter along the highway except to park. And then they can park on the side of the building, because they'll be able to park in the actual parking lot,
Okay,
and they'll be able to park on the side.
okay.
I'm really trying to be a good neighbor and not have any safety issues with the parking.
Because that is a busy highway.
It is.
There's a severe safety issue there. There's no doubt about that going through there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to ask one question.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up right by Rowena my whole life. So, would there be any problem with putting no parking right on, so nobody could park right on the east edge of Douglas Avenue, right directly east of the building? Because there is a residential house that sits back
Yep,
there.
and he does put up his own signs, but I'm
Okay.
happy to put up signs there also.
I would like to put that as a recommendation, that'd be no parking along the east side of Douglas Avenue.
Okay.
So that'd be number 6.
Okay.
Any further questions for her?
Thank you.
Thanks.
If the petition, or if the planning commission would like, that condition number 2 for outdoor storage could be, outdoor storage must be inside a fence or behind a fence.
Okay.
Something to that effect. As if the area is fenced in, that shouldn't be much of an issue.
So does one of us need to make that then? Change that to inside the fenced area.
Yep.
And then add number 6.
And then add Doug's number 6.
Yep. No parking on east side of Douglas Avenue.
David, anybody on Zoom at all?
No hands are raised.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I will make a motion to approve conditional use permit 21-11.
Ryan Vandervliet, second that.
Okay, I have a motion and second to approve conditional use permit 21-11. Any further questions or comments? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth,
Aye.
Anna Morehauser,
Aye.
Doug Odie. Mike Ralston,
Aye.
Vicki Randall,
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflut,
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. That conditional use permit has been approved. You're free to go. Okay, item number 14. Conditional use permit 20-51 to allow a private campground on the property legally described as County Auditor's Tracts 1 and 2. Exception, Lot 1, Tract 1, Section 10, Township 101 North, Range 48 West. Petitioner is Todd Queering. Property owner is the same. It's about a half mile south of Brandon. Kevin?
All right, so this petition was originally brought before the county in the November Planning Commission meeting. The plans have been substantially changed in bringing the project out of the floodplain and on the north side of the property. That really alleviated much of the county concerns regarding flooding and effects of flooding and also danger of flash flooding. Here's the new site plan. Staff, as we went through the previous campground request, had some of basically the same conditions and concerns regarding some sort of a storm shelter and bathroom. The petitioner has brought up that they do have this existing structure here, VIP tower is what they think they call it, and which has bathroom facilities, and it is also a block-walled structure in the lower portion of the building. Same kind of question goes that the FEMA requirements says 5 foot per person, and they're also extensive on what wind speed things are required. And if this is enough for a storm shelter or not, that it prevents wind from blowing down the structure, and then it'd be a safety place for better than a camper situation for the campers that are visiting. The petitioner has also updated the narrative to include that there will be a drop site or a dump site for the septage from the campers. And with all these changes, staff is recommending approval with 10 conditions, which largely mirror what was allowed in the previous campground, with some exceptions like the petitioner's not requesting cabins. So that would be a couple of them. So is there any questions?
Any questions for Kevin? I guess not at this time. Is the petitioner here? Will you please come forward, state your name and address?
Lanny Oranger, Innovative Design, 2700 West 3rd Street, Suite 3, Sioux Falls.
Any questions for him?
Madam Chair, I have one
Go ahead.
question. In the event that they would ever host concerts or anything like that, would this area be opened up for camping then?
I would anticipate that to be the case whenever there's an event, whether it be a race or a concert or, as an example, I don't know if this would ever happen, but there's going to be snowmobile stuff out at the fairgrounds in February, or if things like that occurred. Again, camping probably wouldn't happen in February, but there's other events that may come up, the monster trucks, et cetera. So we say racing events, but it's probably fair to say that any event that would take place out there, they would probably try to make the camping space available.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions for him? I guess not at this time. David, is there anybody on Zoom? Anyone here else in the room care to speak to this item? There's nobody in the other room, Scott, anymore? Okay. Okay, commissioners? Any further comments?
Ryan Vandervliet, I see no reason not to approve this. I'd make a motion to approve item 14.
This is Becky Randall, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 20-51. Any further comments or questions? Roll call vote. Jeff Barth? Adam Morehauser?
Aye.
Doug Odie?
I have a big sigh here. I definitely like it much better than the original plan that we were presented in November. So with that case, I will support this. So yes, aye.
Mike Ralston?
Aye.
Becky Randall?
Aye.
Ryan Vanderflit?
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. I agree with Doug Odie. I live in that area out there too. Conditional use permit 20-51 has been approved. You're free to go. No old business?
Yes, there's one
Okay.
I included a memo under old business. Conditional use permit 11-8 was approved 10 years ago, and with that was a condition number 16 that it be reviewed in your meeting today. And it's for a gravel pit and northwest of Ellis. The gravel pit is still in operation. The applicant's meeting all of the conditions. So I am indicating that no further actions really needed. Just, it was a review of the conditional use permit and all is going well. So,
And there's no new business? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Doug Odie will make that motion.
Ryan Vandervliet to second that.
Okay, roll call vote. Jeff Barth,
Aye.
Adam Morehauser,
Aye.
Doug Odie. Mike Ralston,
Aye.
Becky Randall,
Aye.
Ryan Vanderput.
Aye.
Bonnie Duffy, aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.